Is the Ground Zero Mosque a gesture of Islamic understanding or radical Islam's Trojan horse? There's been a great deal of commentary about the building of a mosque in Manhattan, just a few hundred yards away from Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers used to stand and were destroyed by Islamic radicals on September 11th, 2001. What the Islamic world wants to build a mosque, they claim there, is just for understanding and reconciliation. This mosque would cost in the neighborhood of $100 million. And actually the place where the mosque is going to go is a rather, it's not the typical place in Manhattan, but they've bought this building that you can see online. In fact, American Vision was actually interested in possibly buying the property and turning it into a Christian cultural center, or at least an American cultural center, but the property has already been purchased by this Islamic group, which is an indication why other people haven't thought of this before. A small group like American Vision coming up with this idea and saying, hey, look, let's beat them at their own game. There are all kinds of mosques in New York. Why this particular place? I believe that this particular mosque is a message not so much to America, but to the Muslim community around the world. And not every Muslim. I'm not saying that every Muslim is a radical Muslim. I'm sure there are lots of Muslims out there today who would like to say something against radical Islam, but they are afraid to do so. They might be ostracized by their family. They might even be thought to be enemies of Islam, and as a result may come under some sort of fatwa by some Islamic extremists. Salman Rushdie is a good example of this. When his book, The Satanic Verses, came out, he had to go into hiding for many years. There are those who have families overseas in Islamic nations, and they might be afraid that if they speak out against radical Islam, that some hurt may come to their own family. But I believe this mosque in Manhattan, not too far from the Ground Zero Center, is designed as a Trojan horse. And most of you have some idea of the Trojan horse. It depicts a battle between the Greeks and the residents of Troy. The history takes place somewhere between the events of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And this war had raged for 10 years, and no one was getting anywhere. It was kind of like World War I. Where both sides were bombing one another over and over and over again, and no one was making any progress. And the reason that World War I eventually ended was because people just said, we're not fighting anymore, and they decided to go home. Well, the Greeks, wanting to win this particular war, came up with a strategy, and the strategy was to build this enormous horse, hollow on the inside, and to place 30 of their best warriors on the inside, and then place it outside the gates of the city of Troy. And of course, and then sail away. And then, of course, what happened is that the residents of Troy thought, well, they had won, and this was their peace offering. This was their building of understanding. And so they bring it into the city, and of course, at night, these 30 men come out from the belly of this wooden horse, go and open up the gates of the city, and allow then the rest of the Greek army to come in and then to destroy the city of Troy. And I think this mosque is very similar to that. It's because these other Islamic nations around the world will see this as a Trojan horse. We here in the United States will see this, many people see this as a way of mutual understanding, and it shows our spirit of toleration and plurality. When in reality we've already demonstrated our toleration and plurality by allowing mosques all over the United States to be built. This has been a nation of inclusion from the very beginning, which I think in many cases has been a problem. When you have a religion that has as its basic tenet to destroy anyone who does not accede to the Islamic faith, you've got something here more than just a religion. The religion of Christianity has a great commission to go into all the world and make disciples of all the nations, but not through the power of the sword, but through the power of persuasion and through the power of the inner work of the Holy Spirit on somebody. And when Christianity enters the world, lives are transformed from the inside out. It is not a religion of compulsion. And the other reason I think we ought to object to this, and maybe to mosques in general here in the United States, is to say, look, Christianity, when Christians go overseas to want to witness, they can be put to death. We saw this happen in Afghanistan, where a medical team there thought to have been proselytized into preaching Christianity, as the survivor of this event says, and they were killed there on the spot. They had been there for 30 years helping these people of Afghanistan. And you can't build a church over there without it being blown up. You can't preach the gospel without being persecuted. You cannot convert to another religion, whether it be Christianity or Judaism or any other religion. You can lose your life over all of this. And again, this is what goes on overseas. So why then would we allow a mosque like this, a cultural center, to be built just so close to the Twin Towers that were taken down by Islamic extremists that espouse the basic tenets of Islam? Now again, this is not to say that every Muslim is as radical, but it only takes a few percentage of the 1 billion Muslims around the world to bring this type of terror. Look what it did to the United States soon after 9/11. Look what it's done to airplanes. Here, I'm going to go today, just leave and fly to Los Angeles for a few days. Look what you have to do now because of these extremists. It literally cost the United States billions and billions of dollars just to protect itself from the possibility of extremists. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating on what radical Islamists want to do, here, let me give you a couple of ideas. Here's an article written in 2004 responding to France's ban on the Islamic veil. The new head of the Muslim Brotherhood asserted Islam ultimately will triumph over the United States and Europe. I have complete faith that Islam will invade Europe and America because Islam has logic and a mission, said Muhammad Mahdi Othman Akef, who recently took over the Egyptian-based movement after the death of another religious leader. In an interview with a website translated in the Middle East Research Institute, Akef is convinced the Europeans and the Americans will come into the bosom of Islam out of conviction. Well, that isn't the case. They will come into Islam out of the threat of the sword. There was another essay here in Time magazine, April 3rd, 2006. Today, Tehran, tomorrow, the world. And they are serious about taking over the world. They are serious about taking over the world not through persuasion or through conversion, but through the power of the sword or through the threat of the power of the sword. So Americans need to voice their opinion to Mayor Bloomberg, who said, hey, everybody has the right of free speech in the United States today, the freedom of religion, which isn't the case. You have graduates of high schools who want to get up and at commencement time and to say they want to thank God for how God helped them through this work and wanted to give praise to God. And you have the ACLU, the Americans United for Separation of State, stopping someone just for proclaiming their belief in God in a public school setting. And yet we are allowing a mosque to be built in Manhattan at the very site where radical Islamists destroyed the Twin Towers and has wreaked havoc upon the United States and the rest of the world. And for a religion that has even said that it wants to take over the world through compulsion if people will not do it voluntarily. So make your voice known to those in New York, and there are lots of New Yorkers who will be on your side.
For more related to this topic, check out America, The Untold Story, a visually illustrated audio drama. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.